Today we have a pretty special video because it's the PlayStation 5 and I'm very excited for it because I've been waiting for this thing for a while, and not only that, it's quite hard to get your hands on one these days. So in this video we're gonna unbox it, set it up, and play some games. Alright, so let's get to it. Alright guys, so I've been a Sony PlayStation fan for a long time, ever since the first one came out. So yes, I've been around that long, but it's very exciting to see the 5th generation. And what's cool about the PlayStation is that it's always been very innovative and ahead of any competition so far. So this is the box that it comes in. It's actually larger than you would think, or at least compared to the other consoles. So we got a nice picture there in the front, a little view of the remote, the logo does say 8K, 4K 120 and HDR, and the 8K here just shows the capabilities and the future proofness of this machine, which I think it would probably be used more for streaming, and I would obviously much prefer the 4K 120 frames per second gaming. So flipping out on the side, we have a little contents on the bottom, everything that's included. And this is the back of the box. Play like never before. We can see how the PS5 can lay on its side, which I'm not a fan of. I definitely would tower it. Lightning speed SSD, breathtaking immersion with the controller, and that's what's quite exciting about this next generation is the controller, because it has haptic feedback, and apparently there's some kind of 3D audio technology also. And of course we get pretty amazing games from PlayStation that are exclusive and also very backwards compatible with the PlayStation 4, which is very important. And one thing that might be a little disappointing is the 825 GB storage. Even though it's fast, it's a little bit small for today's standards, and the newer games being much larger these days. But the good part is that it is expandable in the future. And also with this disc version, hopefully we're not going to be worrying about that as much, because we're using a disc to store some of that data, unlike the digital version that this also comes in. All right, so let's go ahead and open it up. You guys can see on the top we have a handle to carry. Very nice. There's only one seal on the top, so it looks like there's just a paper outer shell, and there's another box inside. So very interesting packaging. We got a little logo here, a little tab. So I'm gonna go ahead and dump it, see what happens. And so this is how the PS5 is packed. So there's like this carton foam around it. Well, it's like a paper carton. So definitely not the best packaging I've seen, but it seems to work, I guess. It has pretty good protection, seems like. And here's a little close-up view of the carton, if anyone's curious. And then we just got plastic wrapping all around it, which reveals the console itself. And oh wow, first impressions, it's definitely much larger than I anticipated. It's quite tall. Now it does feel quite plasticky. Not technically expecting too much out of this. We do have a really nice little cutout for the logo here on the top, and it just has a very sweeping, interesting design. And right off the bat, I'm definitely not crazy about the glossy black in the middle. It's not bad looking by any means, but it feels somewhat outdated already. All right, so let's set this to the side for a second and see what's in this box. So it just pops open. We got some paperwork, looks like a quick start guide and some kind of safety guide. And the quick start guide is quite useful. Kind of shows you how to hook everything up and all the ports and things like that if you don't know what you're doing. We get a 2-prong power cord. and it's about 4.5, 5 feet long. A USB cable for charging the controller, and it is USB Type-C. A high-speed HDMI cable, which by the way, you definitely want to use. Don't use your old HDMI cable because it won't be completely compatible with the PlayStation, which requires a high-speed HDMI. And now for the best part, the controller end. This is definitely probably one of the most exciting parts about the PlayStation 5 is the controller. And wow, it feels really good. I like the extended length here, or at least it feels like it is, and it just feels pretty premium. And this is what you usually expect out of PlayStation, is that more of a premium feel. They definitely deliver on the controller. Looks like they took the time and engineered it very nicely. So we do still have the touchpad here in the middle, and it's also like a button. There's a speaker, a PlayStation button, and then another button below that that looks like the microphone. So controller also has a mic now, which is pretty cool because it gives you the option to use this instead of like a headset. So underneath we have the charging and the headphone jack port. So we can see that it uses a USB Type-C charging, and it just looks really clean and feels really, really nice. So there is a new functionality with this controller where it pushes back on you with some haptic feedback. So it'll be nice to see how that works and how it feels when playing a game. So that was pretty much everything for the box, except for we do still have a stand. Support the PlayStation either vertically or horizontally, which is quite interesting. And the stand itself does, you know, feel pretty cheap and plasticky, but I guess it does its job. And not only that, it is somewhat functional. When you spin it, it reveals the little bolt here that pops out that you use to secure it in the upright position. And when you don't need it, you can put the bolt back in there so it doesn't get lost. Turn it and it locks it away. But yeah, so that's everything for the box. So pretty well packed, and includes everything you need to get started. So looking from the back, we can see how thin it is, and it kind of widens up as it goes down. Pretty unique and interesting look. This definitely will draw attention if you have it sitting, you know, on your cabinet somewhere for sure. But here we can see we have two USB ports, an Ethernet port, an HDMI output port, and the power port. So this is what the bottom of it looks like. At the front of it, we have a power button, looks like an eject button, a USB Type-C port, and a USB Type-A port. So the USB Type-C is very good for high-speed external SSDs, and the A port is good for everything else. So this is where our CD will slot in. Now there is a bulge here for the disc version. The all-digital version is actually quite thin, and it looks the same as the other side there. But I feel like with the PlayStation, you definitely want the disc version. And the reason why is because the PS5 is still unique to keeping to its core of being a gaming machine, not requiring you to be connected to the internet at all times like the Xbox. And I definitely like that a lot. And I feel like by putting themselves more available to the console player, and especially if you have a lot of discs and you don't want to connect online for whatever reasons, the PS5 with the disc version makes way too much sense. So for what it is, I would not even consider the digital version over the disc version, at least at this point in time. So on this side, this panel here is quite clean, nothing too interesting here. So we have a pretty like matte finish on the outside of it, but if we look, I don't know if you guys will be able to see it too well, but on the inside of it, it's got a grainy pattern, and it's a bunch of those little X and triangle and O patterns inside of it. It's quite unique. So yeah, as it stands by itself, it's quite a head turner and definitely looks very unique. I like this logo here. It's completely cut out and looks very nice. So let's go ahead and try out the stand the horizontal way, which just clips on, and you guys can see there's two little hooks here, and it should just hook on to the end of the PlayStation, and then we can lay it down. Okay, I think I had it on the wrong side. The CD actually goes down, looks like, maybe. I don't know. Okay, yeah, that looks like it's more correct. So it's like a support underneath it that kind of holds it up, you know, because of its weird shape. So if you wanted to put it somewhere in some cabinet or somewhere where it takes up less room, you'd have to, you know, use that little stand for that reason. Now, I don't like the way it looks like this or even want it like this, so I'm not going to use it like that. We're going to stand it up vertically. And what's interesting is you don't even have to use the stand if you don't want. I think you will get a little better airflow from the bottom if you do. It already has a little step here where it can get airflow with no issues. But if you do want to install the stand, it does go on it just like this perfectly. And these two little clips actually hook to the back of it, if you guys can see that. And then that bolt that we saw earlier screws into here. You pop out this little cap here and it screws through to hold it completely together. So depending if you want to use the stand or not, you can permanently install it if you wanted to. To be honest, I like it without the stand. I feel like it looks more modern and more clean. All right, so for the next part, let's go ahead and compare the PS5 to the old PS4. This is not the Pro, so it is quite a bit thinner and smaller. And you guys can see how much larger the PlayStation 5 is. Quite a bit larger. And honestly, I wish, it was smaller, the PlayStation 5, because this does make it